Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. Today I want to talk about a very interesting connection between Eve, Gaia, and maybe some other goddesses from the region. We know Eve as the mother of all life, all living things, originated all the way back to paradise, to the Garden of Eden. In the story, of course, she's tempted by the serpent to eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, which leads to the banishment of Adam and Eve from the garden. This banishment and the connection between Eve, the tree, and the serpent is something that we must point out. In ancient times, the goddess of fertility were in charge of all things growing from the land. In the story of the Garden of Eden, we actually learn about God that is passing through the garden. He is walking in the garden. The goddesses of fertility didn't just pass through the garden, they wore the Garden of Eden. They wore all living things. They wore the earth that blossomed. Eve, so I believe, is a representation of them. And the fact that she is connected to the serpent, that is an ancient symbol of rebirth and fertility, and a tree of knowledge, which is located close to the tree of life, is actually some form of an ancient goddess. So their connection, their natural connection with the trees and the serpent is not random. Some also say that her name in Hebrew, Chavya, is an ancient word that was used for serpents. Today they say that her name is representing the word life, or being present somewhere, some kind of presence, but maybe there are other interpretations that we are not aware of. And when they banished them from the heaven, after having connection with those symbols, is actually the banishment that maybe all of us went through under monotheism from the ancient feminine symbols. We do hear of other goddesses that had similarities to Eve. Gaia, a primordial goddess in Greek mythology, which is the earth itself, is creating the world in one of the versions, there are many versions, by the fact that she is dancing with an ancient serpent or a sea serpent. From their joint dance, maybe feminine quality and female quality, the world is being born. So we also see an ancient goddess with connection to the serpent and fertility. Without those two things, the world cannot be born and fertility cannot begin. When they banish Adam and Eve from the garden, they tell Eve that every time that she will give birth, it will be very unpleasant. In the story of Gaia, at some point they take monsters that are her children and they banish them underneath the earth. They banish them underneath Gaia or into Gaia. So there's some kind of an underground prison. They try to break out and they're also very sad, and she feels their sorrow and also the pain of them trying to get out. And she's actually experiencing something which is very similar to giving birth and the agony of giving birth, the same kind of pain that Eve will go through every time she gives birth. So I think this is only strengthening the connection between Eve and the fact that she is depicting an ancient earth goddess. When they don't know what to do with the two stories of creation that you find in the same chapter in Genesis, that one says that male and female were created together and the other one says that Eve was created from a rib. So they say that the first story is about Lilith, but Lilith is actually an ancient Mesopotamian goddess. So they're looking for all the possible explanations when they need to reframe the story in order to serve a new idea. Although there is a possibility that the story contains many creation stories that were common in the area. Now, in the story of creation, there's also another story that was spread in those areas, that when they created men and women, they were actually connected in the back, not created from each other's ribs. And what they did was to split them in half, so the male and the female will be separate. Until today, they each looking for their other half. And when it comes to Eve, there are many stories that were later on written about her, about why they created her from the rib and not from the head or the mouth or the hand. So as a woman, she wouldn't be too curious or talk too much or look at others. In the story of Gaia, one of her children that is on the earth, is not underneath the earth, is actually going to fight the father of those children, that he was the one who locked them inside the earth, underground. When he actually manages to fight him from different parts of his body that he cuts, new gods and goddesses are being born, such as Aphrodite. And in Greek mythology, we know of those things. We know of Athena that was born out of Zeus's head. And the fact that there's also this metaphor of new beings being born from body parts resembles the fact that Eve was born from a rib. In ancient Mesopotamia, we have a story of a goddess that is actually bringing out new gods and goddesses from the body of a god. And there is a goddess called Ninti that was born from the rib of an old god. And Ninti means the one that was born from the rib, and also a great lady that was born from the rib. She's a goddess. All of those goddesses appear after a certain chaos. When the world is being born from this chaos, from this primordial water and darkness, then suddenly you can see a new birth, a new growth coming out of those goddesses right after. A lot of fertility goddesses in the area were actually transformed into something else when gods that are male gods took the front of the stage. Hecate, for example, started probably as a fertility and marriage goddess in the area of Turkey. Hera was a fertility goddess, and when Zeus stands in the end of the pantheon, she becomes almost this jealous woman, but she is way much more ancient than Zeus. So we see something that is rushing through those areas. When a male deity is taking the lead, the female ones are being taken to the back. So they took ancient stories and reframed them in a way that served new ideas. But if you go back in time and you start to compare the stories of the goddesses, you see that they share a lot of motifs. The serpent, trees, water, created or being born from body parts, the fact they're connected to the earth and giving birth. And Eve in the Garden of Eden, I think, is a form of an ancient goddess that was reframed in order to serve a new idea. I would love to know what you think about it, and if you heard any other stories that I didn't mention. If you do, please share them with us. I would love to hear your thoughts and your stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.